Tonight on Newshour, with US support for Ukraine in sharp focus, we look at a royal invitation with global implications. US President Donald Trump has formally accepted an offer from King Charles III for a full UK state visit later this year. Well, the move comes amid shifting diplomatic tones and a changed political climate in both London and Washington. Mr. Trump, known for his fondness of royal ceremony and grand staging, is expected to embrace the fanfare with enthusiasm. His last official visit to the UK, though, was marked by protests, protocol controversies and blunt exchanges with local leaders. But this time, the context is different. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, fresh from securing a state visit for France's President Emmanuel Macron, appears eager to manage international optics carefully, reasserting Britain's global role. And what of the former critic-in-chief of Trump, London's Mayor Sadiq Khan? Well, after past arguments over protest balloons and exchanges of online insults, Sir Sadiq Khan has since accepted a knighthood. So has the advancement to his own social status perhaps in some way softened the mayor's resistance to rolling out the red carpet for the two-time US president? Well, as preparations begin then, questions remain. What do these events actually achieve in today's politics? Is this spectacle or strategy? And can royal pomp be a diplomatic balm? First, let's take a look at this report.
King Charles III will welcome US President Donald Trump to Britain for a state visit from September 17th to 19th, Buckingham Palace confirmed on Monday. Trump will be the first elected political leader in modern times to receive two state visits from the British monarchy. The upcoming engagement will take place at Windsor Castle and is expected to feature the traditional ceremonial elements associated with such events. In its official statement, the palace said, "His Majesty the King will host the President and Mrs. Trump at Windsor Castle. Further details will be announced in due course." Trump was previously honoured with a state visit in June 2019, hosted by Queen Elizabeth II at Buckingham Palace. That visit included a private lunch with the late monarch and tea with then Prince Charles. The two reportedly discussed climate change, an area where their views diverged. This second invitation follows a handwritten note from King Charles, delivered personally by Prime Minister Keir Starmer during a meeting in the Oval Office last month. Trump later confirmed his acceptance, describing the king as gracious and the relationship between the two nations as vital. Macron became the first foreign head of state to be hosted by King Charles under his reign. Trump will be the second, a decision seen by some as politically significant given the polarizing nature of the US leader. Trump's past visits to Britain have not been without controversy. His 2018 trip triggered massive protests across several cities and cost British police over £14 million in security, with more than 10,000 officers deployed nationwide. Opinion polls continue to show a largely unfavourable view of Trump among Britons. Yet, state visits are designed to transcend public sentiment. They are ceremonial markers of enduring bilateral ties and the importance of geopolitical alliances. The king, as head of state, is constitutionally bound to remain politically neutral, even when hosting divisive figures. For Prime Minister Starmer, this visit underscores his focus on re-establishing stable relations with Washington. Having already hosted Macron, extending the same honour to Trump may be a gesture of balance in London's broader foreign policy. The full itinerary, including military welcomes, formal banquets, and possible public appearances, is expected to be released in the coming weeks.
OK, let's cross over to our correspondent Ollie Barrett now, who's in London for us. Ollie, just talk us through the key developments then. How did this state visit come about? What's actually planned? And how are officials framing it behind the scenes?
Well, Guy, this visit came about because it was offered to Donald Trump as part of the UK government's attempts to win over the affections of the president for example, trying to reach the trade agreements that are currently in place with Washington and have been attempting to see off, for example, tariff threats from the United States. Now, technically, the offer of a state visit is made by Buckingham Palace, but it is done so very much in consultation with the UK government to reflect its priorities. Now, in terms of what the state visit will look like, it will be hosted at Windsor Castle. That's because Buckingham Palace is at the moment undergoing a series of renovations. There will be a state banquet, as would be normally expected on a state visit of this type. Exactly how much public-facing elements there are in the visit very much remains to be seen. Last time around, when Donald Trump had his state visit to the UK in his first presidency, a lot of it was behind closed doors, if you like. Now, that's partly a reflection of the security priorities that a US president has when he travels, but it is also considered to be partly also because of the possibility that there could be protests if Donald Trump were to be taking part in too many public-facing engagements. When Emmanuel Macron, for example, the French president, had his recent state visit to the UK, there was a carriage procession through Windsor. That's the type of thing that I think would be considered to be less likely when President Trump is here in September. One thing that it looks like there won't be on the trip is an address to the House of Commons or the Houses of Parliament. We have seen that in some state visits recently. Emmanuel Macron did address politicians in Westminster when he was here, but Parliament, certainly the House of Commons at least, will be in recess at the time of the state visit for President Trump on September the 17th to 19th, because it is the season in which politicians decamp away from Westminster here in London because of party conference taking place at that time. So it looks like that won't happen for Donald Trump, but clearly it is going to be an unprecedented state visit in the sense that US presidents normally, when they are in their second term, would not be expected to receive a full state visit from the UK. They would normally meet with the monarch for tea or lunch or something of that nature. But this state visit being extended to President Trump, as I say, for diplomatic reasons by the UK government, and certainly Keir Starmer and Donald Trump appear to have struck up a very close relationship since the two have been in office. And the date's been confirmed, September the 17th to September the 19th. As I say, Parliament will be in recess at that time when it comes to the House of Commons. But this will be a visit that will be very high profile indeed for Donald Trump, controversial for some as well, but unprecedented, as I say, in the sense that normally a US president would not be expected to receive a second state visit during their second period in office, but that is being extended to Donald Trump.
Okay, Ollie, thank you very much indeed. Well, joining me now to discuss this further is the former Mayor of Middlesbrough and political commentator Andy Preston. Andy, always good to see you. Thanks for joining us on Newshour. So, a lot of things with Donald Trump are unprecedented. How different do you expect this visit to be? We've got a new government in the UK, obviously a new administration in the US, a new monarch even. What do you expect from this visit?
I think that this is going to be a lot of pomp, a lot of show, a lot of bluster. It's exactly what Trump loves, actually. Trump loves the symbolism rather than the substance. And I think that's what this is. And I think that it's been deliberately timed so that Parliament isn't sitting and so that Trump won't be expected or indeed invited to address Parliament, which would be much more controversial. I think that this is highly symbolic, and I think that's really bad news. I think it's bad news for the UK because it sends a message to our closest allies, our allies with whom we trade in much bigger quantities. Europe, including the EU, but other countries like Switzerland and Norway. We trade twice as much with them as we do with the USA. The USA has been, since the Second World War, a huge military and security ally for us, but that is unraveling very fast under Donald Trump. So I think the symbolism, the message that we might be sending to our allies in Europe, Canada, Australia and elsewhere is that we are wholly behind the USA. And I have to remind you and perhaps viewers that the USA is rapidly becoming or ceasing to be an ally of many of the traditional parts of the world with whom we are close. So I think we have to be really careful here with the messaging, and I would question the wisdom of this second visit.
Yeah, really careful, as you say, and a lot of care and attention required by Keir Starmer and his team. Has he got the political calculation right, do you think, with this visit and with his overtures to President Trump? Obviously, a Labour Prime Minister, not naturally a natural bedfellow of someone like President Trump. There was a lot of criticism surrounding previous visits, previous meetings. What risks does Keir Starmer run into, and has he got the calculation right, do you think?
I think he has got the calculation wrong. I think that he has backed Trump too enthusiastically. I think there's been some backpedaling, actually, which may or may not have been obvious to some of your viewers. I think that once the state visit was formally invited, when Keir Starmer handed over a letter in the Oval Office, very quickly an informal invite, a meeting between the royal family, the king in fact, and Zelensky was convened. I think as a symbol that basically that the UK isn't siding with Trump against Ukraine. Of course, remember that Donald Trump was remarkably aggressive, abusive and inhospitable to Volodymyr Zelensky over the Ukraine-Russia war. I think that the overall risks are significant because Trump isn't popular. Okay, he received, I don't know, something like 46% of the vote in the USA. So he has some popularity there. But if you go into Europe or elsewhere around the world, his popularity is very low, lower than most US presidents. And so anyone that is seen to be siding with Trump at a personal level, and a state visit is a personal endorsement. It's not a USA endorsement. It's a personal endorsement for Trump, and that's how he'll take it. That will be seen as cozying up to him and implicitly endorsing his policies, threatening Canada, threatening Greenland stroke Denmark, and imposing tariffs around the world. He's unsettling the world. He's causing trouble. And I think that the UK has taken on more than it can handle here. And it will alienate some of our friends and neighbours.
Andy, as you say, perhaps not popular, potentially alienating others, but nevertheless he is powerful and overtly powerful. Has power won out, do you think, over popularity when it comes to our relationship, Europe, UK's relationship with President Trump?
Power has won out completely. Keir Starmer is not a natural bedfellow in any way, in any regard, of Donald Trump's. And his, I'm going to say, kowtowing to Donald Trump was, I think it humiliated us as a country. I think that Robert Jenrick, a senior Conservative Party politician here in the UK, said in the last couple of days that Winston Churchill would be turning in his grave. Trump's actions, his words, his deeds, it contravene all that we value in the world, and I think that Starmer has miscalculated. He's tried to avoid tariffs. It could be argued, of course, that we have received lower tariffs than other countries, but it's a very empty situation that we are in there. We don't have a formal trade agreement. Anything that we think we've agreed with Trump, first of all, he's able to unilaterally tear up and change overnight without our permission. But secondly, he is a man who is known for changing his mind at the drop of a hat. So we can't rely on anything that we have with him. And I think that he has shown that bullying can work. And I think the UK has a long track record. We're proud of standing up to bullies on behalf of ourselves and others. And I think Churchill would be turning in his grave.
Now, one of the people who did stand up to Mr. Trump, has stood up to Mr. Trump in the past, some would argue has crossed a line into perhaps insults and very challenging arguments with Mr. Trump is the Mayor of London, now Sir Sadiq Khan. His tone seems to have changed, or the attacks, the exchange of insults certainly seem to have died down more recently. Do you think he's had a change of heart? Is it got anything to do with his recent knighthood? He's now part of the establishment. Does he have to behave differently now he's a knight of the realm? You've been a mayor yourself. Give us an insight into what Sadiq Khan might be thinking at the moment.
I think that when you hold office and you are the nominated, especially the selected by the voters to represent somewhere, you have to be pretty careful what you say. Sadiq Khan wasn't very careful when it came to Trump, as of course senior Labour people weren't, people like David Lammy, who's now the Foreign Secretary. So something comes about, something changes once you are in office, and you do have to be very careful. Sadiq Khan becoming a Sir, yeah, sure, he's now part of the establishment. I think that everyone is somewhat or prone to be critical of the establishment, even anti-establishment, until they become part of it. So I think that's part of a personal journey that he's been on. But secondly, I think that the main reason he's changed his tone is it part of the government. The government has decided to act in a certain way towards Trump, and those Labour members that are very anti-Trump and remain anti-Trump are having to somewhat bite their tongue and be very careful. Interestingly, on this note, there is a reason why this date was selected, and it's because Parliament is in recess. So Trump couldn't be controversially invited to speak and address Parliament or snubbed, because if he'd gone to Parliament, there would have been a lot more backlash, I think, from a number of Labour MPs, causing embarrassment for Trump and the ruling Labour government. So to summarise, I think that Sadiq Khan has changed his tone, as David Lammy has. I don't think we should be too surprised or read too much into that.
And Andy, we've spoken a lot about the reason for ceremonial visits like this is predominantly a diplomatic reason. Do they actually work, visits like this? Can we convert something, all the pomp and ceremony, can we convert it into tangible diplomatic results? And do you think it might reset Britain's position on the international stage, so to speak?
I think that visits can work. I think your standard state visit, I think that spending time with people you're trying to get on with really, really works. I mean, there's lots of psychologically tested evidence of this, but at a business level, at a political level, spending time with people breaks down barriers, it relieves tensions, and it fosters understanding. So it really works. And when you've got a character like Trump, who is a lover of pomp and ceremony, who wants to be seen as somebody who is liaising, mixing with royals, I think that it has a lot of value. The trouble is the hugely symbolic value that a royal visit or a state visit has also works the other way, because Trump is an unpopular character in Europe and beyond. He is a divisive character in Europe and beyond. So being seen to flatter and fawn to Trump in this state visit will definitely damage our relationships with people in Europe and beyond.
And Andy, do you think part of the thinking, therefore, behind that was the President Macron comes first? You'd alluded to the Parliament not being taking place, sitting during the event. Do you think all of these calculations have been made in order to sort of slightly dilute any sense of fawning over the president?
Yes, I think so. I personally believe that in Trump's early days, after his inauguration, he was bandying about tariffs. Everybody went into a fight or flight mode. I think there was lots of fear, and I think the invitation for the unprecedented visit and the fawning that went on in that meeting was an attempt to win favour from him. And I think very quickly after doing that shock reaction, that knee-jerk reaction, I think suddenly there was a sense of, wow, we're going to have to play this down now. We're going to have to, how do we backpedal without de-inviting Trump. We can't not invite him now. So I think Zelensky was brought in very quickly, and I think other people will be too. And the date in particular is significant, and that he gets the state visit, but he's denied the chance to address Parliament.
Very interesting. Andy, always great to have you on the show. Thanks, as always, for your analysis. Well, that is all from this edition of Newshour. From royal receptions to political recalibrations, the stage is being set for a visit unlike any other. As the red carpet is rolled out, the questions linger about legacy, diplomacy, and the power of pageantry. From all of us here at Anewz, thanks for being with us.